Welcome everyone to the Underground Sound. I am DJ X-Tech alongside of Carlos Fandango. Today is our interview edition, and we are interviewing Billy Hayes. And this is the Underground Sound, where indie music finds its voice.
So please do like, subscribe, and share, and we'll find the music that you like to hear.
And don't forget to click on the bell so you can get all the links and updates as well.
As mentioned, today we are interviewing Billy Hayes. Billy Hayes, how are you? Tell everybody a little bit about yourself here to begin with.
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks very much for the invite. As you know, my name is Billy Hayes. I've been a singer and songwriter for 30 odd years, probably a bit more than that now. Musical background, musical family. My grandparents, I think my grandfather was an opera singer. I'm half Welsh and half English, so the Welsh side very much embedded in music. My dad is a professional musician and session musician, and has done different commercials and bits and pieces over the years, and it's got lots of pieces of music that are kind of out there, been sort of published and been used in commercials and TV shows and bits and pieces like that. And as a result of that, there was always a guitar in the house. So slowly but surely, I picked it up, and ever since, it's been probably my best friend. Is the most consistent friend. It's always something there that you can fall back on, and in your best moments, in your lowest moments, you pick up a guitar and you play, and on occasion a song comes out. So yeah, that's a little bit of me. Played in bands over the years, and then I moved up from London. Grew up, born and bred in East London. Then I moved up to Bedfordshire with my wife. So since then, I've not really played in bands, a few kind of covers bands and stuff like that. Done a bit of solo acoustic stuff in various pubs, doing covers. And then, yeah, just I still love it. This is not my house. This is my little studio I've got down the bottom of the garden. And I built this, I've been building it for a little while, and then sort of ran out of money for a little while. And then during COVID and lockdown, I had a bit of time and a little bit of extra money, so I finished it. And now it's a bit of a hub, a little, I don't like to use the term man cave, but essentially that's what it is. It's where I go and escape and try and be creative when I can.
Yeah, we need that, a little bit of escapism. How many guitars have you? The ones we can see, obviously 4 or so, but how many guitars have you got in total?
I think it's 12 at the last count.
Oh, wow, nice.
12 if you count my first ever guitar, which is just an old acoustic with 3 strings on it now, I think. But yeah, I've got a couple of I don't know if you can't see it in shot there. I've got a Telecaster that my dad gave to me for my 40th, which was his baby that went all over Europe. It's like a 1971 Telecaster. It's completely road worn, covered in tobacco stains from old clubs and bars and chips, and it fell down a left shaft once, and the neck exploded, and it all got glued back together. And it is an absolute dream of a guitar. So that's my baby. That's the that's the birthright. And then I've got a Strat up there and an Epiphone Casino, which you might recognize from the Beatles' Get Back.
Nice.
So yeah, I've got, and then the newest edition is that one there, which is that bass, which is a 5-string fretless, which has been a lot of fun because I played in a bass in a band for a long time, always 4-string, always frets. So that was a real challenge, and well, it's still a challenge. We don't master any of these guitars, but that one in particular is, but it's great fun. And I love it. I really do enjoy playing it. So, in fact, I picked up the 4-string fretted a little while ago, and it was completely alien. So, yeah, I have got used to the 5-string now, and I'm quite enjoying it. Yeah, it's good fun.
Nice, good deal. So let me ask you. So, coming from this musical background that you have, the entire family, what it sounds like was pretty much doing music. Did you just gradually get into it, or did you have that kind of like kind of moment, like knowing like, okay, well, this is it, music, this is what I want to be doing?
Yeah, I think I think probably I was about 9 or 10 when I first had like a guitar lesson or a few guitar lessons at school. And then it was one of those things, it's difficult at first, guitar, because it hurts, and it's not piano, as as amazing it is to be a fantastic piano player. You can sit at a piano and you can, with 3 fingers, you can play a chord and it sounds like what it's supposed to sound like. With a guitar, it's a bit more graft, and you have to go through this sort of pain barrier. So sort of 10 and 11, I kind of started. I think I probably tailed off for a year or two. And then when I hit sort of secondary school, and we had a brilliant music facility in my school, so we used to go up at lunchtime, and then I'd be jamming with like-minded friends of a similar age, and then it kind of really took off. And then I never looked back after that. Really, I've always played, and yeah, it's just So it's, like I say, it's been a real good friend of mine, to put it a little bit sort of romantically. It's like, and sometimes I don't know if you guys get this, but sometimes I sit down with a guitar and I almost forget that I could play. It's like I play and I'm like, oh yeah, I can do this, like it's just, and it will never go away now. And I'm so pleased that I stuck with it at that early age, because you speak to so many people and they say, oh, I wish I could play the guitar. I'd love to be able to play the guitar, or I'd love to play an instrument. And I tried it for a little while and then I put it down. Well, I could have been that person, because plenty of things I've tried to start and never continued with. So I'm very grateful that I stuck it out with the old guitar.
That's good. Yeah, that's very good. I mean, it's not everybody. It's people can become proficient when they do pick up the guitar and become good at it. Yeah, people can become very proficient technically at it. But again, being able to create something from nothing with an instrument, that also is a different art in itself as well. So you've clearly got the technical proficiency plus the artistic creativity, which actually is quite an unusual combination. So many artists, particularly classical artists, and so like musicians, are very proficient but do not have a creative bone in their body. In terms
well, it's funny you say that, because I worked for one of my first jobs, and this was through my dad. I had contact through my dad that one of my first jobs was as a tape op in a top studio in London. It's one of the top 3 studios in London, which sadly it doesn't exist anymore. But it was called Angel Studios in Islington, for those of you that are familiar. And it was an old church that had been converted into a studio. Huge. I mean, I used to set up microphones for sort of 70-piece orchestras and stuff like that. And you used to see these phenomenal musicians come in, orchestras come in, the best violinists in the country, best cellists in the country, best pianists in the country. They all come in. They'd come in having never seen this piece of music, heard this piece of music in their life, conductor, tap, 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 and away they'd go. And they would just play this most incredible piece of music written by this composer. And you would find that those people, and of course there's outliers, but you would find that quite often they could only work to a piece of music. It would be like, and I guess the only way I could put it, it's like the difference between somebody who can read and somebody who can write. It's as simple as that. If you can write a book, but not everybody can write a book, but most people can read. And it's obviously there's a little bit more to it, because it's a lot. I would suggest it's probably a lot more difficult to read music and play it and perform it as quickly as that, but it's essentially the same thing. So, I think that's probably the way I could put it, because there are some people that can, like you say, create a piece of music out of nothing. There's a famous story of Paul McCartney when he talks about not Tomorrow Never Knows, in A Day in the Life, and the bit when there's the big crescendo, the big orchestral crescendo. The story I've heard is that he basically said, I want all of you to get from this note to this note, and I don't care how long it takes you, and I want you to basically all, you're going to get, say, 20 seconds, and some of you will go as quickly as you can, some of you. And he said it was really difficult to get these musicians to understand, because they thought they needed a piece of music, they needed something to be able to do it. So I guess that's kind of a good example of the difference between somebody who knows how to play and write and yeah.
Yeah, the Beatles studio catalogue is littered with examples. All the recording, notes and everything, it's littered with examples, and that's a really good one because it was, just taking it from a low note and actually in their own time, own pace, and it just managed to sort of crescendo all together.
But it freaked them all out. They were all like,
"It really did, yeah."
You need to write this down for me. I don't know what you mean. Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, interesting. But yeah, so that's my little story about creative people and people that are don't you just wish you could be a virtuoso player? Like, you kind of wish you did. But I also think that I'm kind of glad that I've got that bit of creative streak, not to talk yourself up enough, but I think I'd rather have that than to be the grade 8 cellist or whatever,
Yeah, I thought about that 100%.
It'd be nice to be both, but I don't know how many people are. But
not many.
No, it's a good point. So let me ask you, in your opinion, what do you think sets independent music, not aside, what do you think sets independent music apart from mainstream music?
Well, freedom, I'm guessing, really, because obviously with mainstream music, there tends to be trends, and there tends to be, once you hear if a song hits, you tend to suddenly find that there's lots of songs that come out that are in that same vein. And even with those artists, you tend to find that the big hit single, the next 2 or 3 singles can sound very, very similar, almost sort of nauseatingly similar. And without I always get a bit conscious about I'm not sort of trying to suggest that I'm any sort of talent here or anything like that. But what I'm getting at is that what I love doing, because let's face it, we can say you can call people rip-offs until you're blue in the face, but for me, I really like listening to a piece of music, and if I hear something and I think, God, I'd love to write a song like that, not trying to rip it off, but I like the style, or I like the musicality of it, or I like the instruments that are used in it, and so for me, being an independent musician means that you're not trying to please anybody. You're honing your craft. And some people look, I'm a rock band, and I want to be in a rock band, and that's all we want to do is rock. It's great, good luck to you, that's fine, but I love the idea of exploring all different genres and trying all sorts of and sometimes you pull it off and sometimes you don't, or sometimes you create something that was your interpretation of it, but it ended up sounding something completely different. So and so what? It doesn't matter.
Exactly. It's yours, still yours. Yeah, you've got your stamp on it. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
So with that said, with your point there, for somebody that well, let's do this. How would you describe your particular sound to somebody that's never heard it before? Well,
I mean, kind of harking back to what I kind of just said there, really. So I guess my main influences would be people like the Beatles, people like Bob Dylan, people like Tom Waits, bit of Stones, bit of Motown, bit of soul, that type of stuff is in there. And I think there's always a tendency to sort of return back to your comfort zone. So yeah, I guess kind of some folk elements in it, bit of punk, bit of kind of, it's difficult to quantify it because, well, firstly, I'm not trying to be my days of trying to be a rock star are long gone. We wanted to do that when I was in my early 20s. Now I'm a 45-year-old, married with children. The thought of going on tour and doing all that sort of stuff just fills me with absolute dread. The dream would be, and I've got one published song that has earned me some money, but the dream would be to be writing. If somebody asked me to write a score, or if somebody else asked me to produce for them, or if somebody asked me to write a particular piece of music in a particular style. So my days of chasing any kind of identity as an artist are well behind me, and I just do it for the love. Maybe that sounds like a cop out, I don't know, but I just enjoy it. Yeah.
It doesn't sound like a cop out or not, because my next question was going to be, is like going through this kind of like honestly dreadful kind of like time that we're living in, is how would you navigate trying to release something these days when I think at last count, when we were doing the show last year, I think that there was like something like 60,000 songs uploaded to the internet every single day, and I think that they said in 2024 that number jumped to something like about like 130,000 songs per day uploaded. So I mean, just kind of like navigating the topography of from what it used to be to what it is now is just extremely difficult. So let's see. So let's skip that question because we pretty much covered that. So
Well, sorry, just on that point though,
yeah.
I think the good thing is now is obviously, yes, there is a it's just, everybody's got a recording studio in their laptop now these days, and that's part of the problem, is that it's so accessible. So from the perspective of trying to get yourself heard, the market's completely flooded. The only thing I would say, and the only sort of advice I would give to younger people, is there's so many little communities that exist, i.e. open mic nights, or people that are if you're lucky enough to find yourself in the right sort of place where you can go and find a regular spot where you can go and either practice your stuff, or those things do exist. I think you just need to recalibrate your desires to where this is going to go. I think there's probably a lot of people that think, oh, I'm on Spotify now, so it's just a matter of time. It's not. So you just kind of, I think you try and find these little independent communities and places like your channel. I mean, it's an ingenious idea what you're doing. Bring in independent music together, and it's a great way of doing it. It's a great way of building your own network, because you're able to, every week or whenever it is, monthly, fortnightly, whatever it is, you are bringing more people in, and you're sort of gaining that sort of level of support, I hope. But in the same, it's like it's symbiotic, isn't it? Because you're giving somebody a platform, and somebody's grateful for that platform, and so therefore they show their support. And those sorts of communities, I think that's probably the way forward, unless you're really lucky. And I think it's always been that way, though, right? You've always had to be. There's always got to be an element of luck, to get a record deal or to get those opportunities. So,
because it's the top 1% of any profession.
Absolutely,
that has the predominant amount of money and the lion's share of the cake. But and it's most people are just struggling for all the little leftovers and
the
scraps and crumbs. Yeah.
I honestly think that these days, more than anything, it's more it's probably a better idea to set your goals on possibly like, hey, if I could earn like $100-200 a week off this, or if I could make a living off this. Becoming a superstar these days is, as you said, it's a lot of luck, because it's very much so influenced by social media. So especially with the introduction of TikTok, there was a lot of musicians that basically came out, something went viral, and now all of a sudden, there's one song that's really known, and they've kind of like, faded into the I don't want to say faded into the abyss, but they kind of like faded into the backstage. It seems like there's just kind of like a new hit every week, and it's kind of difficult to keep up with, where before, when people had all the instruments and they were playing, and they kind of like honed themselves, and they put themselves out there, and they really worked it. They bought all this equipment, and they really made really put the work in. I think that there was more of a chance to become like ultimately successful and a millionaire and a rock star, as you had mentioned before, for lack of better terminology there. So let me ask you, what has been your proudest moment as a musician?
Well, I peaked very early in terms of where I've performed, because when I was 14, I played in a school orchestra, which basically our borough, Newham Borough, did a concert at the Royal Albert Hall. So when I was 14, I played the Royal Albert Hall, and that was it. After that, it was all downhill after that. So that's always a good one, because about 3 months later, 3 months after, so prior to that 3 months, I'd been to see Eric Clapton in the Albert Hall with my dad, and so when we went to play, when we performed there, I sort of got to stand on the part. We essentially had all these Herberts from East London had the place to ourselves all day, whilst rehearsals, things were going on, waiting for people to turn up, all that sort of stuff. So we had the run of the place. So I got to stand where Clapton stood when I watched him play, and I got to sit at the organ and go up into the gods and all that sort of stuff. So that was a great experience, but it was a very, very long time ago. The one piece of published music I've had has been used on sort of bits of TV, and was used on a computer game, Farm Simulator 2017, if you must know.
Nice.
And you know what it's like when you share your music with friends and family, and I mean, I'm not on social media anymore. I've deleted it all. You might think that it would be to the detriment of your being able to get your music out there, but for the 10 years I was on it, or however long I was on it, I never really got any feedback off of it. I didn't really push it. So in the end, I thought I saw it as it wasn't good. I don't think it's a good thing anymore. I'm not a fan of it. It's a cesspool. But anyway, so that aside, when you share it with your friends and family and people the feedback you get, I've got a few people that I really trust, and I've got mates that will pull me into line if I'm getting a bit cheesy, or if I'm, they'll tell me the absolute truth. But anyway, this one particular song was, I found it on YouTube, and it was using the screenshot of the Farm Simulator, and the comment section underneath, I was really pleased, because it was genuine. People that have played this game, they were coming in and they were saying, I mean, to use hyperboles, they were saying, there were comments like, "This is the best song ever. I came here for this song. Such fond memories of this game." So people who don't know me, people who are completely kind of random, obviously have an affinity with the game, but that's nice, because that someone's really appreciating your stuff, as opposed to your mate either telling you it's crap because they like telling you it's crap and they're having a laugh with you, or telling you it's good because they feel like they've got to tell you it's good. So to have it completely, I think that's the best kind of feedback, is when somebody doesn't know you and they're not trying to impress you or trying to protect your feelings or whatever. So, and
it's still managed to connect with them somewhere in the world, for whatever reason. Any bit of music, that's the thing I think is the key for me, is it's just connecting with people, and just being able to sort of just make someone's day slightly brighter or something. That's good, isn't it? That's genuine feedback there.
I became very cynical of slaps quite quickly when I started to realize that obviously people are boosting their credits to be able to post news material. You can generally tell. So, and to be fair to you, Carl, you very often give Carlos, you very often give very in-depth feedback, and that feels like it's actually been thought about, and it's it's this thoughtful. But when you get a fireman or cool or whatever, that somebody's just
in the first few seconds.
They haven't really listened. So I got quite kind of a bit cynical about that quite quickly.
Well, most of the social media that's out there, I would consider slaps a bit of a social media. But I mean, there are some good music. There is some good music out there, I should say. I tend to do pretty much what Carl does. Is if I'm going to make a comment, I'm definitely going to do it about 3/4 of the way through. Possibly at the end, I'm going to draw some kind of comparison for it, because I do actually, listen to this stuff, and I'm not trying to boost up my my CTR so that way I can post tracks. You know how that goes. But
sure,
there are a lot of people like that, because how the hell are you going to write this in depth, kind of like, oh my God, this song really moved my soul, and it's like 3 seconds.
Yeah, I love the middle eight, or the
Yeah.
the key change and stuff like
Yes.
that. Yeah,
Granted, somebody may have listened and and gone back and then left a comment, but
Yeah.
I think generally what's going on there is a lot of people just pretty much clickbaiting it for themselves there. So
yeah.
uh, so if let's put you in rock star mode here, okay?
Sure.
Let's say that you had the opportunity. So the record label's coming up to you and they're saying, we want you to open up for a band. It's going to be your choice. So any band, alive or dead, who would you choose to open up for?
Oh, lovely question. So I would have to. So I've got bands that I could give you bands that, but I would have to probably try and pick something that would be within my style. See, as a songwriter, in my last sort of 10 years that I've sort of really taken to trying to write songs and record songs and try and improve on my production skills and all that sort of stuff, I've never had a band. So for instance, someone like Ray LaMontagne, I don't know how familiar you are with him, but obviously he's got a great voice, great that style. I love that kind of style. And I've seen him do some live stuff with a band. And Marcus King's another one as well. He's a bit more bluesy, but when I watch people like that, I get really kind of jealous is the wrong word, but I look at that and I think, God, wouldn't it be good if you just had the type of band where they've learnt your stuff, you turn up, you plug in, you play. I haven't got to go for. I can't bear rehearsing. It does my head in. Can't be bothered with it. I haven't got the attention span for it. You either need absolutely proficient, brilliant musicians that get it straight away, ones that have done their homework, whatever it is. I cannot be asked with going into a rehearsal studio and going over the same stuff over and over again. Not to say that I'm any better than anybody else, but if I know the song and they don't, I can't be bothered. That's on the flip side of that. If I was asked to step in for a band and turn up and do a rehearsal, I don't do my homework either. I'm terrible for it. I'm an absolute nightmare. So point I'm making is that when I see bands like that, I think, God, that would be brilliant. And on that basis, if I had one of those types of bands, I would love to support Oasis, probably. I would love to support the Beatles. Who wouldn't love to support the Beatles? But do you know what? I love the. Do you know what I watched the other day? See, I don't want to be a rock star. I know I said that, but I would much rather be in the backing band.
Yeah.
I watched. Is it The Last Waltz? Have you seen that with the band? You know the band.
The band, Robbie Robertson, and yeah.
I watched that and I'm like, oh, what to be in that band? Because a good,
yeah, because they're back to Dylan for some time.
Exactly. That's what I'd love to be a part of. I'd love to be in that. So I don't necessarily want to be the front man at all. I only do it because I've got nobody else to be the front man. Like I would quite happily be the bass player. So I guess on that basis, then I would say that I would rather be the bass player for. Can I be in the band? I'd like to be in the band. I want to be the bass player for Bob Dylan or someone like that in the rocks era. You know.
Well, to be honest, that would be a great one, Bob Dylan, because he's forever changing the way he approaches his own songs.
Yes, I know it.
Yeah, and you have to really be on your game and keep on your toes. He keeps you on your toes, basically.
I can give a quick. Sorry to jump in there. I've got a very quick, funny anecdote about that. I went to the Albert Hall, funny enough, with my dad to go and see Bob Dylan. My dad's a massive Bob Dylan fan, as am I, but he's like different level. And it's only 2-3 years ago, and I just missed him, by the way. I was meeting my dad there, and I was walking around, and I saw the bus. The bus was outside, and there was a few sort of fans milling about. And as I walked past, I sort of got chatting to someone. They went, "You just missed him. He literally just walked in." Anyway. We went, right, and I consider myself to be a Bob Dylan fan and consider myself to know enough of his back catalogue. And I can honestly tell you I only recognised 2 songs. We came out, and my dad went, "Didn't you hear Shelter from the Storm?" Like, no, you hear such and such. No, he literally, they were unrecognizable. He's
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing thing. But you hear "Shelter from the Storm" on Blood
The
on the
original.
Tracks, yeah, the recorded version, and it's just a nice acoustic piece. You hear "Shelter from the Storm" on the Hard Rain live album. It's just a completely different song. I mean, it's same lyrics, but it's just phenomenal how, and that's my favorite version as well because it's just so rocking and just lively, and it's just amazing how he just completely changes it. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah. Oh, there would be the occasional lyric. I'd hear a lyric and I go, "How is that?" Well, I'm like a Rolling Stone, like, you know, whatever the song was at the time. I mean, he's taken it to a different level now in his old age. He's just, I don't know if he does it because he's got a bit of a glint in his eye, old Bob. I don't know if he does it just to wind people up, or if he does it for his own amusement. Yeah.
Always had that streak of irreverence, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, it could be. So, you're right about my age here. So, back in the day when you started, you were very young. You obviously had a lot more hardware. Now everything's kind of like a little bit more software based. What are some of the challenges that you think that you've come across as a musician, kind of like transitioning from using a lot of hardware and to basically using these software format type of DAWs, these recordings? Do you still use a lot of hardware? Obviously, I'm not talking about like the guitars, because obviously you use the guitars, but effects pedals, recorders, compressors, things of that nature. Do you still use a lot of hardware? How was your transitioning from kind of like the analog to the digital age for you?
Well, I have been the biggest Philistine when it comes to musical equipment for so long. Like, there are people that have been tube amp people all their life. Like, I would turn up to a gig and hope the bass amp is good enough. Like, and by good enough, I mean that it works and it's loud enough. That's it. Like, I never owned. I've got an amp here. In fact, I've got 3 amps here at the moment. But the one amp I've got here that's essentially mine is a Marshall valve stat, so it's a solid state amp. Got a rough idea of what I like it to sound like. Most of that comes from the switch I've got switched on the guitar at the time, the pickup I've got selected. I do have a collection of pedals, but that's all recent. So to answer your question in short, my learning curve for digital based stuff now in this little kind of studio I've got set up now is almost entirely been learning the digital realm as opposed to transferring from the analog realm to the digital realm. Even though when I used to work in that studio, if I'm honest, and it's a big regret of mine, I have to say, I was not into the recording side of things enough. That was still in the days when I wanted to be a rock star. So the guy who pressed the buttons didn't interest me anywhere near as much as the guy that was playing the guitar. So, and bearing in mind, I was in a place where they had a £300,000 Neve console, all analog gear. They would have had compressors there. They would have had compressors now that I see in my digital rack on my DAW. That if I knew what I know now and could have touched the actual analog version of it, then, it's like, I'm like, oh, why didn't I care about that then? Because now, we're in this world now where everything's digital, and we're using 1176s, which I didn't know what an 1176 was until 2 years ago. So yeah, it's not really been a major thing. I've got a load of pedals over there that I use from time to time, but like I say, I know what up until a little while ago, I knew what a Strat was. I knew what a Telecaster was. I'd never owned a Les Paul, but that was about as far as my knowledge went. Like, I wouldn't know what a Fender Strat sounds like going through a Marshall stack, or a Telecaster sounds like going through a Fender Tweed. It just never grabbed me. As I've got older and as I've tried to develop my skills as a producer, since I built this studio and I've tried to sort of improve my mixes and got better from that perspective, I've started to appreciate it more. But it's all been digital now. It's not. Yeah. So for me, it's not really been an issue. What about for yourself? Like, is that Is that something you've had to deal with?
Oh, for me, yeah. I mean, I used to have, a ton of equipment. Now, you could buy a lot of this stuff for, pennies on the dollar, where back in the day, just for a simple effect, or just for a simple microphone compressor, you were spending a month's worth of pay, if not more.
Yeah.
Now you can literally hop on eBay and like literally probably like 30-40 bucks. But I mean, I had a TB303 and 808, and I mean, I had just a massive setup, and I had all kinds of equalizers, and there was nothing anywhere near technically proficient as as something as simple as like, let's say, Pro Tools these days.
Sure.
Pro Tools, you basically get these VSTs and ASIO for all, and everything's working, and you pretty much have everything at your fingertips. I have a closet, where I still have some of the stuff, but as music has basically evolved into the digital age, I kind of followed it. So I needed, better processing and better, storage. And so a lot of that, physical equipment went and, got sold, so that way I can kind of like catch up to the digital age, because in its infancy, obviously the digital age was still pretty, expensive to get into. I mean, even if you were talking about a very simple DAW where you could just kind of like copy and paste your stuff everywhere, these programs back in the day, like, let's say early 2000s, they were $700-800.
Yes.
And, back in the early 2000s, that's still a ton of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you had a processor that cost $1,000, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just it's been a really weird transition for it, because like I said, now everything's kind of like pennies on the dollars, so everybody can become a musician like pretty quickly, which kind of like goes back to to one of the topics that we were talking about earlier. But we could literally sit here and spend an entire day talking about all of the equipment and everything like that. Let's talk about a song collab that you had done here with Carlos Fandango. Is it the Seeds of Hope or the Seed of
Seed, singular, the Seed of Hope.
Seed of Hope? And Smart Monkey had put together a very nice music video to that.
Yeah, very good.
And let's talk about that. How did you initially come up with the idea for the Seed of Hope?
So Carlos obviously connected with me when I uploaded something onto Slaps, and he gave some of his very detailed and thoughtful comments about one of my tunes. So we kind of connected that way. We started exchanging some emails back and forth, saying that we would, we're always open to kind of collaboration and doing bits and pieces. And I think we had a Zoom call, didn't we? And
Yes, right, yeah.
I can't remember, Carlos, if I'd had the piece of music.
Yes,
Did I?
I remember. Yeah. So basically, you had you'd been working with a guitar effects pedal and had this sort of guitar effect that was an ethereal sort of sounding effect. So basically, you had this track that you'd labelled up as ethereal. It's about 6 or 7 layers and stems. So you had the guitar effects, the bass sound. It sounded like a synthesizer, but it was basically a guitar ethereal sound, a bit like a Brian Eno's isn't it? The effects pedal.
That's Sorry,
That's
yeah.
the one, yeah.
Go on.
Do you want to show the? Yeah.
So it's a Strymon El Capistan, which is basically a tape. It's digital, but it replicates a tape delay, and this is so good. I mean, they're not cheap; they're about 300 quid. But basically, what you can do is it's like a sound on sound, like a loop. Works like a loop station. So it works as a delay. It's got spring reverb. It's got bits and pieces like that. But what I was doing, and that Strat in the background has got a sustainer pickup on it. So essentially, you can play a note, and it will just go on infinitely. For as long as the battery lasts. So I had this pedal, a volume pedal, and then what I was doing was. I was picking a chord. I can't remember what key. I can't even remember what key it's in. But I picked a chord, and then would play just one single note, but had the volume pedal in the off position, and then slowly just bring a note in, and then I'd play a note of each note of the chord, and sort of just slowly just keep swelling them in. Just is sort of, play another note, swell another one in, and it would be on this kind of constant sort of 30-second loop, to eventually, after looping around 20, 30 times, it would create this pad. So it's totally what I love about it is, and the reason I love this pedal so much is it creates something that's organic, off the cuff, there and then, and you'll never recreate that again. It's got like a tape age on it, wow and flutter, so you can kind of age the tape, and you can, the more it goes round, the more it degrades, and the more so the bed for that tune was created on that, and like I say, it's like, if you tried to do that live, well, you'd have to sample it, because you wouldn't, you'd never create it again, so I love that about that.
So you sent the stems across, so that there's several separate tracks. So if anybody doesn't know, this, a stem is the actual sort of the individual tracks that you have. So the guitar track, another guitar track, bass track, and some drums and so forth. So you had this very ethereal sounding track, a certain length. I then sort of took that track because it was just so kind of Brian Eno sort of thing, and it just quite magical, and it just inspired me totally to then. I chopped it up slightly and extended it, and just sort of changed it around slightly, and then started just to add bits to it, orchestrate it, and add the full orchestra type thing going on there, and sound effects and talking sound effects. Love spoken word stuff. So then I did the lyrics. The really, really fascinating thing for me about this is because I think what started this was I'd said to you, do you know, I've always been fascinated about, just taking someone else's music and then developing it and seeing what happens. But also the fact that it's just it's 6 minutes long, but it's a 2-chord song, and you would not know it's a 2-chord song.
No,
agreed.
Because it's got different sections, and it sort of like builds up, and each section's different, and it's just you just don't even notice it's a 2-chord song. So that's what I find really fascinating, how much you can build just on 2 chords.
Yeah, I was actually, I was really, really surprised when you told me that it was only 2 chords, because, listening to it when Rob was still having the idea for the music video, and he was sharing the song on screen, and I was kind of blown away by it. It is a very nice piece, and I mean, for something that was for lack of a better word, simply put together, but obviously it wasn't very simple, because you had your effects pedal and you had your guitar with the sustain feature, and then you kind of like looped this thing together, and then everything was added to it. It came out to be a very just a touching and motivational all around song. So I think fantastic job by the post on that one.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, well, for a start, some of the great songs ever written. Not suggesting that it is, but it's some of the great songs ever written are 2 chords. Higher and Higher by I know it's kind of technically 3 chords, but you could get away with 2 chords. Who does Higher and Higher? Your love.
Your love keeps lifting me higher and higher. That's Jackie Wilson.
Jackie Wilson. So
that's one of the most uplifting songs ever.
Like, there are plenty of really, really simple 2-chord songs that are fantastic, but firstly, I was not hearing what you were hearing. Like when I'm very pleased it went where it went, but my initial thought, it sounded quite almost Lana Del Rey. It had it sounded, to me, I could hear something a lot more modern. So suddenly when I hear that, I was like, oh, hang on. So I was hearing Peter Gabriel, I was hearing David Bowie. But then the intricacies of what you did to it, in terms of, as you quite rightly say, it went from, I guess all I can say is you would shock a lot of people by telling me it's only 2 chords, because of it's almost, what's the word? Anthemic in as much as it or it tells a story, you know what I mean? I can't think of the words right now, but it takes you on a journey. It gets bigger and it gets smaller and it gets bigger and all that sort of stuff. And it's interesting. It keeps you hooked.
Oh, good.
So it's nice to hear. Nice to hear something that you thought was going to, because I've always wanted to do, and I've never not quite done it. Although this is quite close. I've always wanted to, and I don't know if you guys have ever thought about this, but I love the idea of sending someone. Let's just say you sent them a drum beat and a bass line.
Yeah,
that's it. Then they send you back something. Then you send it back, and I'd like because in this kind of digital world, I like the idea of, oh, you're going there, are you? All right. So then I'll put it. You know what I mean? I've never done it, but it is something that maybe that's something for the future we could maybe try.
Well, we should, and between the four of us, and I'm including Smart Monkey, obviously, because we've discussed this ourselves. So between the four of us, that would be quite interesting. Somebody starts something off, send it to whoever you want to next, see what happens next.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably send it to me last because I'll put a ton of stuff on it. Otherwise,
because
if we each say maybe we just put one or two things.
Years on it.
I mean,
it'd be fun. It'd be like a secret Santa of
absolutely,
song. Like, let's see what comes back finally.
Yeah.
So, folks, do stay tuned for the end screen here. There will be a link to Seed of Hope that you can click on. You can watch that video and listen to the song, obviously, at the same time. Mr. Billy Hayes, I would like to thank you for joining us. Do you have any closing words, sir?
No, other than, guys, keep doing what you're doing, because I think this is a really wholesome home for individuals and independent artists, giving two fingers to the man.
And don't forget also, Billy, we must plug your latest song, your own latest song. That's your own solo one. So what's the latest one? Well, you sent me a couple recently.
I've got a couple that are due to be released. I've got one that I still need to get the mastering right. In fact, I did release it, and then when it went up onto Spotify, it sounded awful. So I pulled it. So that needs to go back up. I have got one up on my Spotify that was released about 2 months ago, that I would like to give a shout out to. Well, I know we've run out of time, but I've got it's called When Gaddafi Came for Tea.
Oh yeah, that's a good title. Yeah.
And I went to Romania to go and see Transylvania and go and see Dracula's castle and that sort of stuff. And while we were there, we went to Ceausescu's palace. Ceausescu was the communist leader, and on all that sort of stuff. And we were given a great tour, and the lady who gave us a tour took us into a particular room, and she showed us this room. And she said, "This is where Ceausescu used to host Kim Il-sung, Gaddafi. There was a couple of other communist dictators that he used to have them over for tea." And I remember taking a photo, and I sent it to my dad, and I told him the brief story of this is the room where, and he said, "Well, that sounds like a Bob Dylan song." So I responded, "Yeah, When Gaddafi Came for Tea," and he said he texted back, "Bingo." So that started the spark. So I was, whilst we were on the rest of the trip, I'm sort of thinking, how can I make that work? So anyway, that's the tune. I would like people to have a listen to that, and if you like it, put a comment in this video, I guess, and tell me that you've heard it. But yeah. So, and then if you go to that Spotify, by that point, maybe the others have been released. I've mastered them, but I've got one more Dylan-esque one, which is called Where'd the Time Go, and the other one is called Here and Now.
Here and Now, yes. I've heard both, and Here and Now, Susie loved it. I like it. She said your voice is fantastic. You've got a really distinctive voice and a good voice, So, and it has got a certain sound. And I must add one more thing before Tom closes this up is Scotty G of the We Love Rock and Roll show, who co-hosts that with me. Of all the independent songs we've played so far in the 15, 16 volumes that we've done, Everything's All Right, Billy Hayes' song, is the one that is his absolute favourite. And as soon as he heard it, he loved it, and he plays it in his car. I play it in my car. Folks, got to check that one out because that's a great song. It's so happy and bouncy and punchy. It's just brilliant.
Well,
and the Christmas song.
One of my new musical achievements that you asked about earlier on, that I'm pleased with. To hear that sort of feedback's lovely. Yeah, it's not, it's
Oh,
great to hear.
yeah.
Good news. Thank you.
The Christmas song too. So folks, check out when Christmas is with you.
Yes.
Good song. Good song. Nice.
Okay. As mentioned here before, do stay tuned for the end. Well, not the end credits, but the end screen. There will be a link to that there. Do visit the video description below. You'll find the links over here to Billy Hayes, to Seas of Hope, and everything else here. We do want to thank you again for joining us for this interview session with Mr. Billy Hayes here. Once again, Billy, thank you for that. And this is the Underground Sound, where indie music finds its voice.